This is Casper LSK, and welcome to once again an introduction to the Way of the Problem Solver and the key concepts that we use in this paradigm, the Way of the Problem Solver, that we use to consistently level up in life and move towards an ever greater goal and accomplishment and becoming and transforming ourselves into more, right? It truly is a way of life, and this is like a introduction to the key concepts, so you can kind of get an overview as of what it is, and there will also be quick tips as to how you can actually start to take action on this. Action steps that you can implement immediately will be in these videos, so you get something of value out of it. It's so important that we contribute to each other and share in this way. First and foremost, I should remember absolutely to put up the banner because I forgot it in the last video. And so we learn in life, right? We tweak and we iterate and adapt, and we roll with the punches, right? And so last video I forgot to put up the banner, and I most certainly will not do it this time. So this video is all about how you can power up your brain, right? This is such a very important key concept in the Way of the Problem Solver. But listen, before we just dive into that, I should actually put forward an offer, right? You can go to CasperLSK.com or thewayoftheproblemsolver.com if you want more information. If you want to, there's a book there you can get. It's very cheap. You can read it in an afternoon. But it will take some time for you to fully digest the tools in there. It's very tool heavy. There will most certainly be something in there for you if you kind of vibe with this, if this is your thing, right? You want to grow, you want to become more, you want to achieve things. There's tools in there for you. I have a course. You can get on the wait list for coaching if that is your thing. I work with clients to solve problems, and in the process of that, they learn a system that they can use to leverage up and reach ever increasing goals of achievements and accomplishments, and to become more in life, right? But right now, let's get right into it, how to power up your brain. Because it's such a very key concept. Once you kind of accepted your role and responsibility in life as being a problem solver, right? You need power, you need work capacity, you need to power up your brain. Now, the very interesting thing is it's actually something that is available for all of us, right? It's not something you have to learn as much as you have to unlearn the things that's kind of clouding your brain, right? And distracting you and taking up your focus, right? It's a matter of you tuning into that aspect of yourself that is truly powerful. And this is something that's available to all of us. Your brain is absolutely a supercomputer. Your brain is the most powerful and the most complex structure in the known universe. Not even when you look at stars and galaxies and all that, and all those things, they are not as complex as your brain. Your brain is the most complex structure in the known universe, and you have one situated, located right between your ears. As a matter of fact, a thing that people tend to forget is that everything you experience is a neurological construction, right? That you project out so you can move around in a world model and interact with reality. Imagine imagine the power that's located between your ears, right? And you have absolutely a way to gain access to that power so you can use it for what it is you want to pursue in life. But you have to cut yourself off from a lot of this distraction and nonsense and things like that that's kind of pulling you in all sorts of directions, right? So let's look into that today. I promised you quick and actionable tips, and I will give you that right now. As a matter of fact, this might seem a little funny, but we will do it. We'll actually workshop it right now together, okay? So in your brain, where you guide your attention, like where your focus goes, your energy flows. So you focusing in on a specific area will actually activate it. This has been proven by fMRI scannings that when you focus on a certain area of your brain, it will become more activated, right? So first things first, you have a superior self a part of yourself that is an observing aspect, right? The person that you think you are right now is really just a constructed identity that you kind of identify with, right? You choose to take on that aspect, right? Case in point, through different periods of your life, right? You will be different types of personality, right? You grow, you evolve, right? So a quick example to this is when we look at who we were 10 years ago. When I look at who I was 10 years ago, I can't even, you know, it's a completely different guy, right? Uh, um, and there will be times in your life when you look back at yourself and think, what the fuck what was I thinking, what was I doing? Because you learn and you evolve, right? You are not the same person throughout your life. There's a thread of consciousness that links these memories and these experiences together, and that is the core sense of you. But you have different identities throughout life, and right now in this present moment, right, you have also chosen to identify with a set of character traits and beliefs and values and really opinions as to what things means in life, right? And all those things wrapped up in a nice little package is your identity. It's your self-image. Those two things are not the same, but that's a whole different story, right? But just kind of for now, just really focus in on that. Who you perceive yourself to be is something that you focus in on, right? You guide your conscious focus towards that identity, and through identification you become that, right? And so to kind of remove a lot of the things that the identity is constructed through experience, but also through the influence of other people, your parents, your school, the experience you have in life, and how you evaluate those experiences, what they mean to you, right? And sometimes, just like you have to defragmentize your disk or reset your iPhone by shutting it off and turning it on, in the same way, to kind of focus in on the most powerful aspect of ourselves, right? And kind of focus in on that thing which we do not have in common with other people, but that sets ourselves aside, right? The unique perspective in us. We need to detach from like our everyday identity. We need to detach from that and move back to like a superior self that's more linked into your purpose, right? Your talents, your innate abilities, and your work capacity in your brain, right? There's this thing that's power up, and this is linked into your observing self. Now let's do a quick exercise right now. If you in your mind starts to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then start to count over, right? If you do that internally in your head, right, the voice that's counting is your ego or your everyday aspect. It's kind of the conscious will construction, right? It's your conscious will that it's the sense, it's the point of attention that you can direct as you want. But as you are counting now with your inner voice in your head, notice that there's something that's observing that voice that's counting. So there's a layer behind that counting voice in your head that is actually you, right? There's something observing that, something that is quite neutral, that is superior to yourself. It's an aspect of yourself that observes everything from a completely neutral place, right? That's the part of you, right? Your higher self. It's not your I, it's yourself. It's your higher self that contains all the aspects of yourself, and it's directly linked to your unique purpose, right? It's a neutral part, right? You can detach back to that aspect, right? To kind of wipe the slate clean. And the way you do that is through focusing on the visual spatial epicentrum, which is located here in the back of your brain. So you focus your point of attention to that point of your brain, right? Because your visual focus will link up to that point of your brain right here in the back by doing that. And then by taking a deep, controlled breath, right? Because the breath is your link between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, right? Um, Most of our, how do you say, our nervous system is involuntarily controlled, right? We can't control our heartbeat, we can't control a lot of things, right? Our breath, we can control. And by taking conscious control of our breath, we link up with our central nervous system. And by focusing on this point of the brain and taking a deep inhale and exhale, we actually detach from our everyday identity and simply observe, right? So you link up with your superior self. Now, while you do that, right, like this, focusing in on this, you are detaching, right? And as you breathe out, what you're doing, you should do is you should reattach to the supervisor aspect in your brain, right? This is located on your frontal lobe, right? So you breathe in, focus on this point in the back of your brain, right? Because now you're detaching to your superior self. And then as you breathe out, you focus on the frontal lobe or the front part of your brain. This is where your supervisor aspect lies, right? It's linked up to your superior self, but this is where your willpower is located, right? This is the point part of yourself and your brain that kind of discerns and label and chooses between options, and it can choose between what type of identity and what type of thoughts and emotion that it should identify with. It's very important. So once you detach to your superior self and lock into or reattaches to your supervisor aspect, you will have the power and the capability to choose between what emotions you want to identify with, right? To choose between what thoughts you want to identify with, to choose between what actions you want to take. Because this is the thing, what people do most is they have a thought in their head or an emotion, or they have like a reactive response or a behavioral inclination or a tendency. And once that shit pops into your brain, you immediately just automatically identify with it, right? And you act it out with that impulse, right? So all the thoughts that pops into your head and all the emotions that pops into your head and all the behavioral tendencies that pop into your head, it's very important that you understand they are not all you. They are options that you can choose between, right? You don't necessarily have to identify with it, right? And to tell you a quick story, I had that problem many years ago. I had kind of a temper, okay? I was a criminal scumbag, or whatever you want to call it, right? Or just, I was in a different part of my life, a different season, and on a journey or a path to self-discovery, right? But back then, when I had like an emotional response, if I got angry because somebody violated like my beliefs or my rules or what I thought was allowable or not allowable, I immediately got this how do you say? You can call it short temper. You could call it like a behavioral impulse, and I identified with it. And it took me a lot of years to kind of understand that all the thoughts that pop into your brain and all the emotions that pop into your brain and all the behavioral tendency you have that pops into your brain, they are not all you. They're options, right? You don't have to identify it, right, with it, right? And 90% of the shit that pops into your head, right, you should absolutely disregard it. It's not you. It doesn't benefit you. It's not goal oriented towards who you want to become, who you want to be right now, and what it is you want to achieve in life. It's distractions, right? Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to those emotional responses or that thoughts. I'm just saying that you should have the ability to discern and label and choose between those thoughts and those emotions and those behavioral tendencies or behavioral impulses that you have, right? You should take one step back and then you should choose, right? You should label them as what they are, see them clearly, right? Discern between them, and then you should choose what you identify with, choose with what you attach yourself to, right? And so imagine just a person that's highly depressed or anxious or whatever. That's an emotional state that has a set of thoughts linked up to that, linked up with that emotional state, that then has a behavioral pattern linked up to that. Now that's a feedback loop, right? It can start with emotion that then is interpreted as thoughts, and then end up in behavior, or it can be a behavior that is then interpreted as emotional response, and then we evaluate that and label it as something through conscious thought, right? It's a flywheel, right? It's really hard to say where things start and where things stop, right? And you can intervene in that process on every step of the way, behavior, thoughts, or emotion. But the important thing for you to realize right now is that you can choose what it is you identify with. So you will need to take that step back, right? Because let's say you're in a highly depressed state, or if you're very angry or depressed or sad or whatever it is, right? You're overwhelmed by these emotions, these thoughts, these impulses, right? You need to take a step back. And you do that by linking up to your superior self, right? Detaching from all that nonsense, right? Disengaging from it, right? Cleaning the slate up to a neutral state, and then you engage and reattach with the supervisor aspect that lets you choose what it is you want to identify with. And that is the first step for you to power up your brain. Now, another thing is that when we get distracted, right, it's usually in the area of instant gratification, or like we consume things that could be social media, that could be food, that could, whatever it is, to kind of manage our emotional state. Now the thing is, once you do this technique, and it's so very, it's of course it takes a little bit of practice, right? Because you have to anchor in that technique, you have to work it through, right? Like when you perform a sport, right? You don't just kick the football or throw the football or throw the punch perfectly the first time around. You have to practice it a little bit, and then it becomes a automatic behavioral response, right? You anchor it within yourself, and it's the same thing with detaching and reattaching to the supervisor aspect. I can do it virtually, literally, by taking 2 or 3 deep breaths in, focusing here, then here, and I'm completely into the supervisor aspect. And what I wanted to say before was, this is the conclusion to all of this, is that once you detach and link into your supervisor aspect, these impulses of instant gratification, they go away, right? So you will no longer have this impulse to instant gratification or to procrastination, because you are linked up with your supervisor aspect, which is, by the way, also where your willpower is located and where you are highly focused and highly concentrated. So this is a skill that's very important for you to learn how to use, right? To power up your brain. It will literally give you processing power. It will give you willpower. It will give you decision power as to who you are, what you choose to pursue in life, and what you choose to attach yourself to, your identity, what emotions you choose to pursue, what thoughts you choose to identify with and pursue, and most importantly, what actions you choose to take in life, what behavior you have, right? So to learn this technique is so incredibly beneficial. Now you got the basics of it right here, right? If you want to have the full technique and how you can work it through and acquire that as a skill, a skill that you can consciously leverage by will, right? It's very important that a skill is a tool you can use consciously and by will. It's not something that sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. No, you can do it all the time, right? Because it's a skill set. And so if you want that, you can go to kasperlsk.com or thewayoftheproblemsolver.com. I have the book there. It's an ebook. You can also buy it in bookstores. It's more expensive there. So if you go to the homepage, right, you can get it more cheap. There's a course actually that goes through all these different tools in the Way of the Problem Solver. It's a video course. that you get with the book for free, because I want to give you as much as possible to really get you up and running as quickly as possible. This is not for me. Of course, I want to have a business, but the way I make my income is through coaching clients in group and in-person one-to-one coaching. This is where I make my income. This is something I really enjoy doing, and the book and the material and the courses and these videos is really just to contribute to you, to empower you, so you have skills available to yourself, right? So go get the book, and listen, if you don't like it, it's risk-free. Just shoot me an email, I'll refund you. No questions asked. You can keep the book, you can keep the course. I really don't care. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that material over there is for you to kind of invest in yourself and really get something out of your life, right? I want to pay it forward, right? I have a lot of experience, and it makes altruism, like I said before, it makes you all warm and fuzzy inside. And I really like doing this. I really like helping people, and this really makes me happy, and it's given me a new path in life, right? It's one of the things that I'm pursuing in life, right? That I'm choosing to pursue in life instead of this past criminal career, right? This is so much better for me. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this. And if once again, if you want more out of this, then go to casperlsk.com or thewayoftheproblemsolver.com if you want to learn how to power up your brain. It's so important that once you have accepted your role and responsibility and the whole paradigm shift as being a problem solver, that you're able to power up your brain. Because one thing is acknowledging that you need to solve problems in life, right, to move forward. Another thing is actually doing it. And to do it, you need power, right? You need to be able to take action. You need to have drive. You need to have focus. You need to have concentration. You need to be able to disengage from distraction and impulses, thoughts, emotions, behavioral tendencies that doesn't serve you. Or to put it in another way, all those things that are not goal oriented. Your purpose or your main objective is to be congruent with the goals you're pursuing, right? And when you power up your brain, this is the ability it gives you. It gives you the ability to be congruent with the goals you have in life, right? So I cannot stress this enough. It's a highly leverageable and highly a useful skill to have, to be able to consciously power up your brain, right? There's a lot of other things that are linked into this, right? This is not the only way we power up our brain, right? The thought process, how we analyze things, how we think about it. There's a lot of things, but this is the basic skill. This is like turning on the engine, right? And getting some, I think it's called RPMs, right? To get the engine running, right, and give you that horsepower so you can move forward, right? That's where you get it. So to end this here, I'll just say until the next time, if you can watch the next video, or you can go out there, right, and you can take action, right, solve problems and move forward in life, because you got this, right? You're not lacking anything. All the skills, all the tools you need are already there. You just might need a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of help to tune into what's already located inside you. You are so powerful. Don't forget that.